All right. Good afternoon, everyone. In a short while, you will hear from Francisco Pichon, Resident Coordinator for Cuba, and Gregoire Goodstein, Humanitarian Coordinator ad interim for Haiti. They will join us virtually to speak about the humanitarian impact of Hurricane Melissa. Then at 1 p.m., there will be a briefing here by the Independent International Fact-Finding Mission for the Sudan, following their presentation to the Third Committee this morning. And at 2 p.m., there will be a briefing by a group of human rights experts on Nicaragua, following their presentation to the Third Committee this morning. Tomorrow, our guest will be Nicholas Koumjian, head of the Independent Investigative Mechanism for Myanmar. He will be here to brief on the situation in that country. Then, at 1 p.m. tomorrow, there will be a briefing here by the President of the Human Rights Council, Ambassador Jörg Lauber. This morning, Martha Pobee, the Assistant Secretary General for Africa, briefed Security Council members on Sudan. She said that the Secretary General's personal envoy, Ramtane Lamamra, has invited both parties, the leaders of the Sudanese Armed Forces and the Rapid Support Forces, to separately enter into technical talks with the UN, focused on de-escalation and the protection of civilians. She added that both parties have shown encouraging signs of their willingness to engage. Ms. Pobee urged member states with leverage over the parties to encourage them to take this critical step and called on the Security Council to use all tools available to demand peace in Sudan. Undersecretary General for Humanitarian Affairs Tom Fletcher also briefed the Council, describing the horrific humanitarian situation in El Fasher. He said that the Sudan crisis is fundamentally a failure of protection and of our responsibility to uphold international law. The violence extends beyond Darfur as well. Mr. Fletcher noted that across Sudan, and despite the massive threats, cuts, and constraints to our work, the humanitarian community has reached 13.5 million people between January and August. The Security Council also issued a press statement expressing grave concern at the violence in and around El Fasher. Staying in Sudan, a joint UN convoy from the UN Refugee Agency, the UN Children's Fund, and the World Food Programme has reached the towns of Diling and Kadugli in South Kordofan, delivering urgently needed food, health, and relief supplies to families cut off for months by siege and conflict. This marks the first major joint UN convoy to the area since the conflict began. Despite the long and fraught journey and the looting of some aid en route, the mission represents a vital breakthrough towards establishing sustained humanitarian access. We once again underscored the urgent need for safe passage, protection of aid workers, and continued cooperation to deliver life-saving assistance to all hard-to-reach areas in Sudan. We and our partners are scaling up response efforts also in Tawila. Mobile health clinics there are providing urgent medical and nutrition services for people who have newly arrived there. The UN and our partners are also sustaining water, sanitation, and hygiene operations across Tawila, Melit, and surrounding areas, trucking safe water, installing latrines, distributing hygiene kits, and conducting cholera prevention campaigns. Later this afternoon, the Secretary General will address the conference in support of peace and prosperity in the Great Lakes region via pre-recorded video message. He will tell participants that this conference must be a turning point and will urge donors to support the humanitarian response plan in the Democratic Republic of the Congo, which remains underfunded. He will also call on parties to honor their commitments under the Washington Peace Agreement and Doha Declaration of Principles, and to comply fully with Security Council Resolution 2773. The Secretary General will also reiterate our support for peace efforts, including through MONUSCO's support for the implementation of a permanent ceasefire. And in a statement, our colleagues at UNICEF also reminded participants of the conference that more than 12 million children across the Democratic Republic of the Congo, Uganda, and Burundi depend on humanitarian aid simply to survive. The full statement is online. Turning to Gaza, the Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs says the scale-up of humanitarian operations continues under the ceasefire, but remains constrained by ongoing restrictions and other impediments. Yesterday, the UN and our partners collected close to 240 pallets of tarps, winter clothes, and hygiene kits from the Israeli-controlled Kerem Shalom Kerem Abu Salam crossing, bringing them closer to people in need inside Gaza. They also picked up more than 170 pallets of menstrual hygiene kits. Our other teams collected over 220,000 liters of diesel to power critical services. And we also had colleagues collecting food supplies. But OCHA says that for the third day in a row, these collections had to be limited because of the rerouting ordered by the Israeli authorities. You will recall that convoys are now forced to go through the Philadelphia corridor along the border with Egypt and then up the narrow coastal road. This road is narrow, damaged, and heavily congested. Movement remains slower even after the World Food Program repaired the road. Additional crossings and internal routes are needed to expand collections and response. WFP says its distribution channels in Gaza are back up and running. Over 500,000 people have received food assistance through 43 general food distribution points. That's a major increase, though it still covers only about 35% of the monthly target of 1.6 million people. In a social media post, WFP said that family food boxes are a lifeline and restoring access to essential food is essential. Today, UNRWA, the UN Relief and Works Agency, said it had reopened one of its medical points in Gaza City, which is providing essential care to families. In a social media post, the agency said its health teams have now provided over 15 million consultations since October 2023, helping keep care, hope, and dignity within reach. And yesterday, the UN Office for Project Services distributed nearly 210,000 liters of fuel across southern and northern Gaza, helping keep critical operations running in support of water, sanitation, health, food, rubble removal, essential telecommunications, education, protection, and humanitarian logistics. Turning to the West Bank, today, Ramiz Al-Akbarov, the Deputy Special Coordinator and Humanitarian Coordinator for the occupied Palestinian territory, led a field visit to the Ramallah area to highlight challenges faced during the ongoing olive harvest. Bringing diplomats from several member states who joined him, he stressed the urgent need to ensure safe access to groves. This comes amid a spike in settler attacks and ongoing access restrictions that, combined, undermine people's livelihoods, well-being, and dignity, and pressure families to abandon farming and leave their communities. So far this month, 126 settler attacks related to the olive harvest have caused casualties or damage across 70 villages. That's according to OCHA's records as of Monday. Farmers have been assaulted, crops and tools have been stolen, and over 4,000 trees have been vandalized. In total, 124 Palestinians have been injured. Turning to the situation across the Blue Line near the border between Israel and Lebanon, our peacekeepers in southern Lebanon expressed deep concern over an Israeli armed incursion in Blida this morning. Such Israeli action north of the Blue Line represents a blatant violation of the Security Council Resolution 1701 and Lebanon's sovereignty. UNIFIL reiterates its call to all parties to fully commit to the cessation of hostilities and notes that the extension of state authority through its institutions is at the very core of Resolution 1701. The peacekeeping mission remains in communication with the Lebanese Armed Forces regarding the incident. I want to flag the note we issued yesterday regarding our UN personnel arbitrarily detained by the Houthis in Sana'a. The UN Special Envoy for Yemen, Hans Grunberg, and Moin Shem, the UN official appointed to lead on the issue of detentions, were in the Omani capital, Muscat, on Monday. They met with Omani officials and Ansar Allah representatives as part of our ongoing efforts to secure the release of all UN personnel. As of today, at least 59 UN personnel are arbitrarily detained, some for several years. Mr. Grunberg also held discussions with senior Omani officials and the Ansar Allah negotiating team on ways to reach a negotiated political settlement to end the conflict in Yemen. From the Caribbean, the UN Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs reports that Hurricane Melissa has left a trail of devastation after crossing Jamaica, Cuba, and the Bahamas, with severe effects also felt in Haiti, the Dominican Republic, and parts of Central America. The hurricane caused widespread damage to homes, infrastructure, and crops, with the American Health Organization reporting, the Pan American Health Organization, reporting that health facilities have been particularly affected. The UN and our partners, already mobilized before the storm's impact, are delivering assistance and supporting damage assessments, coordination, and logistics in close collaboration with national authorities. A 3-person OCHA team is deploying to Jamaica today to reinforce the resident coordinator's office and support national emergency operations. Additional specialist teams remain on standby should governments request further support. In Jamaica, authorities report severe flooding, landslides, and power outages. The World Food Program has begun logistics operations to deliver relief supplies from the Caribbean Regional Logistics Hub in Barbados, including 2,000 emergency food kits for airlift and additional items arriving by sea. We and our partners are also providing support in logistics, health, sanitation, early recovery, and protection. And of course, we will hear from our guests shortly about the situations in Cuba and in Haiti. Our colleagues in Vietnam, led by Resident Coordinator Pauline Temesis, are supporting national efforts to respond to one of the country's most damaging typhoon seasons in decades. Between May and early October, 11 typhoons and tropical depressions, including Boili and Matmo, struck within days of each other, affecting over 1 million people across 6 provinces. Working closely with the government and humanitarian partners, the UN helped establish joint assessment teams that deployed to the hardest hit areas. Their findings informed a joint response plan launched this week and calling for nearly $50 million in targeted multi-sector assistance for the most vulnerable people and affected communities. I have a clarification to make. In the noon briefing on Friday, the 24th of October, responding to a question about allegations against UNRWA personnel by the Israeli authorities, I said that there were a small number of staff members of UNRWA who were credibly linked to Hamas. This was incorrect. The outcome of the OIOS investigation into these allegations did not qualify them as credible. Instead, OIOS said that the evidence that it obtained, if authenticated and corroborated, might indicate that the staff members may have been involved. The government of Israel to date has not provided additional elements to corroborate or authenticate the claims, although it has been asked to do so repeatedly. Furthermore, the International Court of Justice last week ruled that the State of Israel's claim that UNRWA is infiltrated by Hamas was not substantiated, nor were allegations that UNRWA is not a neutral organization. And last, we would like to say sheshe to the latest contributor who made a full payment to the regular budget. Who do you think that would be? You all guessed it. Yes, it's China. China's payment brings the number of fully paid up member states to 142. Do we have any questions before we go? Yes, Deji.
Yes, speaking of the Chinese contributions, so we know that nowadays UN is facing a financial, let's say, liquidity crisis. How would that money help UN to navigate through the difficult times?
To be honest, any payments are helpful, but this is a very large payment of more than $685 million, so it's well appreciated. And certainly we thank the government in Beijing. But of course, we also stress that all governments need to pay their dues in full. You've seen the sort of financial pressures we've been under, and we do need full payments from all member states. Benny.
On that topic, does the government closure of the United States affect any of the U.S. payments?
No,
to the UN?
that's not an issue for us. Obviously, what affects it is whether the U.S. Government pays us. But
yeah,
we
they
continue.
can't pay for food trucks in the U.S. So why do you think they would pay the UN?
Those are separate issues, and of course I would like to point out that payment of dues is a treaty obligation, and all member states need to do that.
Even
Yes,
when
please.
the government is closed, shut down.
That's a domestic issue. It's not, different governments have different pressures that they face, but dues payment is part of their obligation.
When is the U.S. government
Benny, this is not a debate
payment
we're
due?
having.
Wait. When is it due? Just a question of fact. I mean, is it usually paid?
You can talk to U.S. officials about how the shutdown affects them.
When is it normally paid? You know that.
What?
When is it normally paid? At
It
the end of the fiscal year?
varies from time to time, but we do expect payments towards the end of the year. Yes, please.
So the leaders of China and the U.S. Met in South Korea yesterday, and given both countries have huge impact on global development, what is the Secretary General's view on the significance of this dialogue for international stability?
We appreciate a dialogue among all nations, and certainly for nations who have as a critical a relationship as the United States and the Republic of Korea, we very much welcome their efforts at dialogue. Linda, and then Stefano.
Thank you, Farhan. I was just wondering, perhaps I missed it. Were there any new developments regarding the release of any detainees in Yemen?
I just read out earlier a note that we shared with you yesterday about the efforts by Hans Grunberg and Moin Shem, our two senior officials. But right now, the number of those arbitrarily detained remains at 59. Stefano?
Thank you, Farhan. Well, you noticed that the Security Council on Sudan just released a press statement, but it's a very, the press statement, we all know, is the lowest it could go. So has the Secretary General considered sending a formal letter to the Security Council invoking the responsibility to protect, given the atrocity now unfolding in Al-Fashir? Well, I remember almost 500 people were just killed yesterday in an hospital. If not, why not?
At this stage, the Secretary General has been very clear about how difficult the situation is. In addition to Martha Pobee and Tom Fletcher, the Security Council in its closed session today also heard from the Secretary General's personal envoy, Ramtane Lamamra, and all three of them have a very clear message for them. And the Security Council is engaging, and we expect further engagement as we proceed.
I'm sorry, I have to do a follow-up. One is a matter of a responsibility to protect, means there are really massacre going on while we're speaking. Timing is very important. Now, when it was the case, I remember Secretary General Guterres was just in the office. People think that he saved the life of 800,000 people in Myanmar because he sent a letter to the Security Council while in Myanmar they were slaughtering people. The Security Council, came together right away, was ready to act with the resolution. And what happened is actually all the killing all of a sudden stopped. And they were able, these people, 800,000 people, to get to the border with Bangladesh. So asking again, why the Secretary General is not sending a letter or doing a strong statement to say, to tell to the Security Council that this is the moment to act?
The Security Council is already seized of the matter. Like I said, 3 senior UN officials spoke in very clear terms to the Security Council just within the past few hours. And so we are delivering a very strong message about the killings that are going on. You'll have seen the statement that the Secretary General himself has issued about the situation in and around Al-Fashir. He's considering his options. If further steps are needed, he will consider those at that point.
So is he satisfied with the press statement? That's enough? The press statement of the Security Council?
What he wants is for the killings to stop. As I just told you at the start of this briefing, one of the things that Martha Pobee pointed out is that the parties have shown encouraging signs of their willingness to engage, and she urged member states who have leverage over the parties to encourage them to take this critical step. And so she's pushing on different member states and on the Security Council. Yes, please.
Thank you, Farhan. On the latest details of the fragile ceasefire in Gaza, Israel says Hamas today has handed over 2 more captives, leaving 11 bodies still to be transferred. Hamas claims it needs Israeli approval to bring in heavy equipment to retrieve those bodies from areas impacted by bombardment, while Israel accuses Hamas of delaying the full release. Does the SG make anything of these conflicting claims, and does he believe either side is buying time? Thank you.
I think from the Secretary General's standpoint, he's made it very clear that he wants the parties to do their utmost to live up to their commitments under the ceasefire agreement. We are not one of the parties who are mediating this agreement, and we leave it in the hands of the mediators to determine what follow-up steps they need to take. But we are encouraging them to work as much as they can to find practical solutions to implement the ceasefire conditions fully. Deji?
Right. So yesterday, President Trump posted something on social media, said, because of other countries' testing programs, I have instructed the Department of War to start testing our nuclear weapons in an equal basis. Does the Secretary General have anything to say on this proliferation issue? Now it seems it's getting more and more, how to say that, out of control?
Well, the Secretary General has been saying for some time now that current nuclear risks are already alarmingly high, and all actions that could lead to miscalculation or escalation with catastrophic consequences must be avoided. We shouldn't forget the disastrous legacy of over 2,000 nuclear weapons tests that have been carried out over the last 80 years. In other words, over the course of the entire lifespan of the United Nations itself.
You can see that in the UN tour.
And so from our standpoint, from the Secretary General's standpoint, nuclear testing can never be permitted under any circumstances. Yes, Linda.
Farhan, I don't know if you may know the answer to this, but can you clarify regarding the hostages? Islamic Jihad had hostages, I believe. Are they, when we talk about Hamas releasing all the hostages, those include them?
Yes, we want all hostages, including all the remains of deceased hostages, to be released by all parties.
But Islamic Jihad has released everyone they had, as far as we know.
I don't have a numerical breakdown of which thing,
Right.
which party holds which deceased body, but all of them need to give them up. Michelle Nichols. Michelle?
Hi, Farhan. Sorry, I was having an issue. Just on China paying its dues, has it paid peacekeeping as well?
I believe it's paid a substantial chunk of peacekeeping dues, but what I was saying today in terms of today's payment was this is its full payment for regular budget dues.
Okay, and then can I just trouble you to read your response again on the nuclear question, because there was an interruption in the middle of it, which makes it no good for telly. So if you do it again, that'd be great. Thank you.
Okay, I'll just one more time and then we'll get to our guest. So the Secretary General has repeatedly asserted that current nuclear risks are already alarmingly high, and all actions that could lead to miscalculation or escalation with catastrophic consequences must be avoided. And as he has said, we must never forget the disastrous legacy of over 2,000 nuclear weapons tests carried out over the last 80 years, and that nuclear testing can never be permitted under any circumstances. And with that, let me turn now to our guests.